Hey guys, this is Ashley and Russ, and today we are talking about using sex as a coping skill. Now, for some of our OG listeners, you're probably like, I feel like you guys have talked about this. And it's because it has to be brought up so much with so many other topics because it is a popular thing to do right now. I'm having feelings, I'm having emotions, I'm feeling lonely, I want to feel love, I want to feel something, I need to feel connection, I need, and trying to work on those things on your own. And when it gets hard, feeling the urge to call up that person who maybe they do it for us, but it's something that is being used instead of sitting and feeling your feelings and getting through whatever the thing is. When I think of this topic, I'm thinking of like Solange's song, Crane in the Sky. Oh,
Mhm.
she definitely did that. I try to shop it away. I try to sext it away. When you're trying to get rid of whatever that feeling is, but instead of sitting with it, instead of processing, instead of actually doing the work, I am occupying my time. I am occupying my body. I am getting rid of that feeling by giving my body ecstasy.
Mhm. 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 And this is like and it's like and I'm sure as we go along, we'll, get further into, why this can be harmful.
Yeah.
Like, it's not like exercise. It's not like going for a walk. It's not like anything like that.
We are
Mainly
not about to brag on it. Like, this is not in
no.
case you're like, "Yeah,
Yes.
girl." Yes, no, that's not
No.
where we're going.
Let's get this straight up. It is not a healthy coping skill. I think you've definitely said it on here before. Like anything in that song, "Cranes in the Sky," is probably not
Or
what you
yeah,
need to be doing.
yeah.
You really gotta sit and deal. So yes, it's not like exercising or something like that as a coping skill. Mainly because there's a whole other person involved.
Yeah.
There's a whole other person that has feelings and thoughts and all these other things. And honestly, anything that I don't know, I feel like we need to take a minute to pause about like even with what coping skills and how they're meant to work
Yeah.
because there are times where in the moment you may need to distract yourself so that you
Mhm.
can move through a moment, but not with somebody else's body, I would say.
Yeah, yeah. Well, and even in one of our earlier episodes, you once I don't remember what we were talking about, but I remember you using the phrase of like, nobody wants you to use like my body as a stress reliever.
Mhm. Mhm.
And you should not be using anybody else's body as a stress reliever. This is not no one else's body is your fleshlight.
Mhm.
And kinda like I said, I think that's why you can't compare it to things like, well, running, or I need this distraction, or I need this blah, blah, blah. Because again, you're bringing somebody else into your complicated web. Also, I think this one can get really slippery as well too, because for a lot of us, not all of us, but the emotional and mental ties that comes with sex in general,
Mhm.
especially if you're already in a bad place.
Mhm. Yeah, but as I would say a lot of people who are using sex as a coping skill, they're not doing it with, their healthy relationship.
Yeah. 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 Yeah.
It's usually with probably someone you may not need to be involved with,
Mhm.
or again, it's someone who maybe has a different perspective on what y'all's relationship is than what it actually is. Like,
Mhm.
it's usually and that's how it starts to get, tricky and messy because there's a lot that goes into I know, because I grew up, we grew up in the sex revolution, like, "Free
Mhm.
yourself, girl. Do do what you feel," you know?
Mhm.
But but the reality of it is that we do form different, emotional ties. We do n n it's not nothing. I don't know a better way to say it, but it's not nothing.
Yeah.
Not nothing is happening, even if you say, "I don't even really like them like that, just the sex is good."
Mhm.
That doesn't mean that nothing is being exchanged in that moment.
Yeah.
Um, Even if you guys both sit down and agree, "Hey, we're just doing this for fun," not nothing is happening.
Yeah.
There's still something happening and something being exchanged. And so if you're again using sex with another person as a coping skill instead of actually dealing with your problems, like it becomes an issue for multiple
Yeah.
reasons.
And we do want to just throw that disclaimer out there. We're not saying that, okay, having your moment of like kind of wow, getting to know yourself and having sex and maybe not the more traditional way of like, oh, I have to be with them for this long and then we have to say hello. Not at all. I've talked about this before. I'm a big believer. I think all women should have kind of their hot girl time. I think it is I think it's necessary. I think it's necessary, personally. I think you need to have I'm trying to tell you, it's them
You know, have a
girls that's
taste
all
of
been
where
with
you
that
should
one
be.
person their whole entire life, and then that person, like, they finally divorced at, like, 48, and then they have sex with someone else, and they're like, "Wait, it was supposed to be like this." I'm like, "Girl, we was trying to tell you."
I
Yeah.
agree. Like it's an expert. Everyone should have some sort of exploration phase period of their life. I definitely believe in that. But also, I guess this is a note to if you're going to do that, like there is a better way to do it.
Yeah,
And also make sure that you're not doing this to run from your problem. So,
yeah,
like, some people are like, oh my gosh, like after this breakup, and they're just rebound, getting out here and doing stuff. Well, if you're in like an emotionally hurt place,
mhm,
because, oh, what I used to hear, the best way to get over someone is to get under someone else.
mhm. No,
It's not.
no. Even if you don't like the person, nothing hurts more than, like, I'm already in pain, I'm already missing a person, and this person I don't really even want then rejects me, or then, like, you
Mhm.
taking a long time to call, you taking a long
Mhm.
time to text back, I'm saying, like, pull up at 2, and you like, "Nah, busy," like, even if you don't have that, right? You
Mhm.
like, "Oh, they come right away, da, 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 da." That's not the move for so many reasons. So, yeah, disclaimer, yes, we believe in the having your exploration period and time. Again, I personally feel like it's very important for I think all women should have it. And that's just opinion based. However, if you are like in the middle of your depressive episode and you decide, maybe I want to
Mhm.
explore sexually now, let's wait. Let's
Mhm.
wait.
Mhm. So going back to just like defining what a coping skill is and how they're helpful. Again, sometimes yes, it can be to just get you through a moment, but usually, yeah, it's what you do to like get you through. But also, it shouldn't be keeping you from actually processing what's happening. Like again, it's okay to be like, oh my god, I'm so stressed right now. I'm just gonna sit here and color.
Yeah.
That's cool. But if your stress is coming from work because your job sucks and your boss is mean or whatever the issue is, at some point you're going to have to deal with that. Like you're going to have to figure out what you're going to do about that.
Yeah.
If your stress is coming from because you are having problems in your close relationships with your family, with your friends or whatever the case may be, at some point you have to address those things.
Yeah.
You cannot just again go fucking off and expect them to resolve themselves. And I think that's kind of it's when you're ignoring instead of coping is getting through it in a healthy way.
Mhm.
I think when we're talking about using sex as a coping skill, we're talking about you being unhealthy and ignoring the problems.
Yeah. And one of the things I always tell my clients, and they're like, okay, well, how can I know it's a coping skill? I say, if your coping skill adds to additional stress, even if it's just later, if your coping skill can add additional stress to you or additional problems to you, that is not a healthy coping skill.
Mhm. Mhm.
And this can look like actually, I kind of had this conversation with a friend actually recently. Like, for
Mhm.
example, they had brought up, well, like, what if I do like shrooms? They're like, yes, it's drugs, but they're like, it's like, love and peace drugs. I was like, I mean, no, like, I don't think it should be a growing skill. I'm not saying that you shouldn't have your moments in the sun and go have fun and be able to feel colors. That's not what I'm saying. What I'm saying, you shouldn't do that as your coping skill. And the kind of conversation we had about that is they're like, well, how is that particularly harmful? And it's like, one, you're probably not supposed to. You probably, if you gotta have to take a drug test for your job, which they do,
Mhm.
it could create other issues. Also, it is an escape into, like, fantasy, so
Mhm.
I'm trying to escape reality with this, and
Mhm.
I'm personally pro grounding coping skills, stuff that lets me be able to stay in the present moment but be able to
Mhm.
stay in the present moment in a way that still feels safe.
And also, just a word to the wise, if you are in a bad headspace, that is not the time to do shrooms.
It's not.
You will not be in a joyous place. I promise you that. Don't do that. Okay.
And I guess one of the other things we are talking about when we're talking about using sex, particularly as a coping skill, is that going back to coping skills in general, it is a band aid for a deeper pain. And
Mhm.
oftentimes it's not like people are using it like, let me use this band aid before I can get the cast. A lot of times it's just, and I'm gonna put this band aid over this old band aid. And then I'm gonna put another band aid on this band aid, another band aid on this band aid. And what happens when you have a broken bone and you put a band aid on it? It gets
Mhm.
worse. You might not be able to use that particular appendage or whatever again
Yeah.
if you let it linger long enough and not let it be healed or taken care of. And that can kind of
Mhm.
happen to us with things sometimes emotionally as well. Not that
Mhm.
we can't come back from things. However, something that, okay, it might have been a hard month, but I got through it. You can turn that into, okay, this is going to be a hard couple years of me trying to unlearn this behavior.
Mhm.
And I have to put so much more effort and time in backpedaling and falling off and getting back on it when it really was something that if I could have just sat and really dealt with it, I could have been this wouldn't even be a thing right now. It's one of those coping skills that just extends the pain.
Mhm. Mhm. And also, while a coping skill, a positive one could be like, oh, talking to a friend or talking to a da, da, da. I think those are great, but I also think you shouldn't only have coping skills that involve other people. Um, because people are people, right? Like other people can have their own mess going on, people can get burnt out, people can be unreliable, like lots of things can happen. So while it is when you're like, but this is my person, and I just like you might be wearing them out, knocking on their door at 2 a.m. every time you have a bad day.
Yeah.
and and like things like that do start to like that's again we're what makes it I believe unhealthy is again there's a whole other person whose life is involved. You're avoiding things.
Yeah. So let's talk a little bit though about why we even turn to sex as a coping skill. Why is it such a popular one? And of course, we got the science behind it. Sex, it can release dopamine. Like I get this happy feeling. If my body is tense, it's a good way to release that tension. Yes, that is a big part of it.
Mhm.
But also, I think one of the things I feel like I see all the time is like, it feels like connection, especially when you are going through like a season of depression. You're going through a season where you feel alone. You go through a season you feel in love. You're going through a season where it feels like I'm doing all this alone. Even when you are with somebody, you're like, I don't even know their last name. It still feels like connection.
Mhm.
And it's so dangerous to depend on false intimacy.
Mm. Mhm.
Yes, that one was deep. I'm actually proud of myself for that.
That was a good one. Yeah. It can also be a way of seeking validation, especially if you're someone who prides yourself. Yeah, I'm in here, I'm doing this stuff and ooh, 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 and you turn this person on and y'all reach y'all goals and all that stuff. That's what makes it like that little dopamine hit. So, or even the things that you do to get the attention to have the sex. Like it's
Yeah.
seeking this validation. I'm important. I'm special.
Mhm.
Someone took the time to give their body to me or however it is that you're thinking about it, but can also be a way of, yeah, getting false validation.
Yeah, especially if you're a person that, like, shows out to, like, I might there is a thing of, like, I might be mediocre here, I might not be doing good here, I might not
But I can dog on it. I ain't
Let
gonna
me
do
show
it.
you.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Mm-mm.
but let me show you where I show out at. That's my skill, and when we're saying this way, it seems funny, but
No. Yeah.
it is a thing. For
Mhm.
for some people, it's like, I might not be able to get people with my personality. I might not be able to get people to stay or connect or whatever when I talk about my ideas or my mind or anything like that. But I know sexually, that's where I have my confidence. And there's nothing wrong with having confidence in the sexual area.
Absolutely.
Or go girl or guy. Uh, However, I have never seen that particular mindset lead to anything but eventually a feeling of depletion and this belief of like, am I worthy of love? Or am I
Mhm.
worthy of whatever it is? Question mark, am I worthy?
Mhm. It's also a way, I think, for some people to feel like in control. Honestly, what my mind keeps going back to is like when I'm what I'm thinking about specifically with my ladies, because we tend to feel like if we're offering sex to a man, they're gonna take it. They gotta,
Mhm,
like, because that's what men do.
mhm.
And I also know that there are men who feel obligated to say yes to sex. A, because they feel like, well, when does this just happen?
Yeah.
When does this get offered? I gotta capitalize on this. And also because there's this expectation for them. Like I have literally heard men like be upset about like, oh, I don't really feel like doing this, but if I don't, then I'm gonna be called all kinds of whatever,
Mm,
whatevers, or you know what I'm saying? Like I feel like I have to, so
yeah,
let me gear up for this.
yeah,
So it's like you're showing up at 2 a.m. to take control over the situation or to feel like you have, yeah, when I call, he comes. And like if in a fun way, yay. And you just going through the motions just so you can feel something?
yeah,
No.
yeah,
Boo, tomatoes. Don't do
yeah.
that.
I think anything that where I'm trying to check in on I need like it's a check-in for me. Anything that is like a check-in and you have to use sex to do that check-in, no. Automatically in a no pile,
Mm.
automatically in a negative pile. And so that's do I still got it? Let me have
Mm.
sex. Nope. Nope. That is in the unhealthy pile. If it's
Mm.
am I really her? Am I really her? Negative pile. Okay. Do he really love her? Or he miss me?
Mm.
Anytime where I'm doing it as a thing to answer a question,
Mm.
Imma say no. Imma say, "Nope, we're going into unhealthy territory."
Mm-hmm. That's a good one. That's a good no.
But so you talked about ladies no, you did mention men. You did mention men as well. I know, and I don't know if this is unpopular or not, because men, y'all only like 7.5% of our listeners. So, but one of the things that comes to mind for me when it comes to this, when it comes to men who they like brag on their numbers, like yeah, I done hit the whole city. I done blah blah blah. I'm just like, oh yeah, you use sex as a coping skill. That's the
And you're,
I mean, lots of things come to mind. Let me
mm-hmm.
be very clear. But particularly because this is what the podcast episode is on, we're gonna talk about. Like, I automatically go, oh, I really kind of like you're using sex to emotionally regulate.
Mm-hmm.
You
Mm-hmm.
you don't know how to regulate without using another person's body to calm you down. And let me be very clear, you might want to check in on some of these to see if that's what's happening because
100%.
they
100%.
will
Has he
literally
dealt with the
use you
fact
as an emotional regulation tool.
Has he dealt with the fact that he's bragging that the first time he had sex, he was 12 with his grown ass babysitter? Like, let's. I'm just saying, it's a lot of people struggling with that, and they need to go back and look at it. But I dated someone who was definitely trying to use sex as a coping skill, and I remember the moment I noticed that it was happening,
Yeah.
and it was because he would just like freaking trauma dump, just like when I was at war and saw people get murdered or killed or whatever you call it, just going on and on. And I'm still sitting there like, damn, that's a lot to process. And then
Yeah.
he's like taking his clothes off. Wait a minute.
Yeah.
Wait a minute. What's
Sir,
happening? Are they just up and
sure
kiss
will
you
be.
after trauma
I,
dumping and then trying to kiss you? Whoa.
I am not your Wellbutrin, sir.
No, no. And it was like I switched, like I just know, you know what I'm saying? Like,
Yeah.
because we knew why I was there. We knew we were gonna lead to that eventually. That was part of our meeting up.
Yeah.
But then when it was like, I'm in the throes of trying to process what you just told me, and you're taking your clothes off.
Yeah.
Wait. And I literally stopped and I said, sex is not a coping skill. And he paused and was like, well, damn, that just made me feel bad. I was like, that's what you, I just realized that that's what you're doing.
Yeah.
This is not okay.
Yeah.
Like, and he was like, what do you, and I had to explain, like, you can't do that. You can't just dump all that on me
Mhm.
and then just like jump into, do you realize what you just did? And no, he probably, even he was aware he was going to just go for it anyway. That was just what he was going to do. Or, you know what I'm saying? That was the first time that was really brought to his attention that, like, this is what you're doing.
Yeah.
You about to use my body and bang all on me to heal what you got going on. Like, that's crazy. You need to really process and work through that. And I'm going to go because
Yeah.
I don't want to be a part of what's going on here. So that's a thing too. And I know a lot of people who have experienced that. Someone just literally just emotionally dumping on them
Yeah.
and then moving in for a kiss. And they're like, bruh, you was just crying to me about your dead cousin.
Yeah. Yeah. And and especially the others individuals who like also it feels like there's always this like sympathy story before sex.
Mhm.
I've just been going through and I'm tired and I hate these people, man. And they making my job so stressful and just, but that's why I like being here with you.
Mhm.
Let me
Mhm.
take your panties off, okay? Like, hold on, hold on, hold on, hold on.
So,
What's in
so,
between my legs is not gonna help those people be nicer to you at the job. I promise
so,
you.
right. So while we're at talking about like, don't be the person using sex, do not allow yourself to be used
Yeah.
in that way.
Yeah.
Like, notice the signs. Even if you're like, ooh, he a little upset. He really hit that thing. No, do not let because again, something is happening. There's some type of energy exchange that is literally happening, and they're putting their stuff on you. They're dumping their stuff into you,
Mhm.
metaphorically and likely literally. You don't want that. Say no to that.
Yeah. 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 And us, I'm a believer in like soul ties too. And I know not
Mhm.
everybody believes in that, but
Mm-mm,
like
mm-mm.
if you've ever if you've ever, and I'll admit, I know I've done this before, use sex as a coping skill
Mhm.
because sometimes younger me definitely use sex as a
Yes.
coping. I had definitely had a period where I did that, and it feels so draining, and it can feel so
Mhm.
depleting. And sometimes I don't lie, sometimes you get your marathon lap. It might be like you might have a good 3 months. Where you're like, nah, I'm having fun, city girl life. But it usually comes with a feeling of drainage, and because, like, you are and I again, kinda like Ashley talked about, if you've ever had somebody do that to you, I promise you, you can almost feel like I don't know, but ever since I started messing with him, like,
Mhm. Yeah. Mhm.
I feel like a cloud is on me. I feel like heaviness. 'Cause you and the term we be using, you and your energy, I don't know, you messing up my aura. But you're allowing them to
That's
have that because that's what they're doing. They're exchanging. Give me sex and I will give you my sadness. Or let
Mhm.
me leave my sadness here. But it
Mhm.
doesn't get left there.
Mhm. I can't help but think about how the media portrays that a lot too. As just like nowadays, when I like watch certain movies and shows, and people are like the two main characters falling in love, and I'm like, they've just been experiencing trauma for 3 days straight, and now they're making out, and I just feel like this is not good, and I can't not see it, the trauma bonding and
Yeah.
how common we make it in in the media. And so even scenes like exactly like you were saying, where it's like, oh, I'm so depressed and sad and all this stuff is happening to me. But you and these are like in like rom-coms. Like
Yeah.
these are in like, supposedly love story type movies. And then you have people out here thinking that that shit is cute. You have people who romanticize being with some tortured soul
Mhm.
that only they can heal. And unfortunately, it usually doesn't work that way. You just end up depleted. Having been with the tortured soul myself, I can say you just end up being depleted by them. Um, I really want people to let those fantasies go because they're not realistic.
Yeah. I
But
am not allowed to talk on the topic. I went on a a rant about y'all didn't hear the full rant. I think I cut it down to 2 minutes, the episode of love and basketball. And that's not the same topic of this, but I just want to rant of like, do better. Want more. Want more. What you mean? You about to, I say, play me for my heart and you turn into Jordan. Want more. That's not romantic. Anyways, after that, I'm so I am unlikable on the topic and I get very passionate about. So I'm
Fair,
not gonna go into
fair.
that. But I agree. I agree. There's so many movies where there was a TikTok I saw years ago. It might not have been a TikTok. It might have been like a YouTube short or something. But there was like a short video I saw years, like maybe 2 or 3 years ago, where the person was talking about something like this. They're like, a lot of the stuff, movies that we think are like so great, and we're like, oh, this is a great love story. They're like, if I were to take away, like, if you had never saw the movie and I took away the actors, I took away the production, I just told you this happened. And then she met him here, and then he did this, and he did that, and they end up married. She was like, it would sound like a horror story. But because we add in like the funniness and the cute clothes, and like, oh my gosh, she's like, he's so cute, he's so fine. And we add that stuff in and they add a little bit of humor. We're like, oh my gosh, it's just great boring. It's like, no, just take away all of that and just say word for word. Yeah, just say word for word. They met in high school. He went to a date with another woman. She saw him on a date with another one, still ended up having sex with him that night. You know, he didn't ask her and they lived right next door to each other. Like, and you break it down like that. It's like if your girl was telling you these stuff, she's like, around.
Yeah.
Girl, I don't, it sounds like he used it. It sounds like you the backup plan. I don't know, girl. This isn't.
They put it in a movie because the two main actors are attractive. They're like, oh yeah, this is romantic. I love the what do they call it? It's the Bechdel test, but with Steve Buscemi. The Steve Buscemi test, you know, the guy, do you know what I'm talking about?
What you're talking about. Yeah.
Or they're like, if you
With
replace
the guy with the
yes,
eyes.
with eyes. Yes. So if you don't know, just pause for a minute, Google them, then you'll be like, oh, I know who you're talking about. If you replace the main male character with Steve Buscemi, and all of a sudden you like, oh, that's not, then there was something wrong with the movie anyway. If he was doing it, would you feel stopped? Or would you feel like... So I'm just saying, yeah. But I love that thought because that has really caused me to critically. I've never been a rom-com person anyway, but that thought really does cause me to like look at things more critical. Like, oh, if these two people were not attractive, would this be?
Like, reading is so great and good for you, but it has ruined so much for me. I'm like going through a phase where I'm reading up a lot on propaganda. And I've had it before, but I'm like rereading and I can't, things I used to be happy for, I can't even be happy for. Things I used to like, I can't even like no more because I'm like, it is media propaganda. There are so many people in our media who are horrible people and it's all stage and we are like rooting for it and it pisses. And then you just see things that play here, just like, I think about it all the time of like it's I'm trying to decide if I want to say this or, you know, how far Trump is going to get and when we going to start getting locked up for what we say. But fortunately, now we got to think like that. But no, like even with like so many people now coming out on TikTok, like America's not that great. I'm like, yes, because we have an amazing propaganda machine. I'm glad that you guys have caught up. And you're just like, did y'all know? Like, actually, it's kind of been a oligarchy for a while now. Yeah. We have people, rich people that can lobby for laws. Yeah, it's been that way for a while. Yes. Anyway,
it makes me think about our propaganda episode where we were talking about a lot about things that are just like pushed in the media to just be like, yeah, they're the good guys. And then when you have experiences in your regular everyday life or you look at the news for a little bit, you're like, what? I'm gonna reconcile what I'm seeing here. But there are so many. Yeah, that could be a whole other episode because there are so many things where like we'll have like a major event happening and then it'll be like, there'll be like a spew of movies that are like, here's a war movie about the hero and how they did this thing because see, sometimes war is okay.
I'm not alone.
But it's okay. We have those moments.
Don't get me on propaganda. But yeah, I agree. There's so many things I think also in our media that makes us believe this type of thing is okay because you see it. Like again, you see the movies about the girl who got her heart broken and she went out drinking with her friends on a crazy one night stand as she's like depressed, crying on the way to the car there. And then she has this one night stand, and that's actually her next husband. And it's great and it's funny, romantic. And you're just like, yeah, that's how that happens. But usually not.
Usually not. Usually not. So we talked about some of the risks, like mainly like there's another person involved. You're definitely avoiding stuff. You could be seeking negative validation, but also I think another one is you can create codependency, um, that could be really unhealthy.
Mhm.
Because also again, the thing about and there's nothing wrong with healthy attachments and depending on people who are reliable. There's nothing wrong with that. However, when you're creating an unhealthy dependency is when like if that person is not there, that sex is not there, that thing that you're trying to use to cope with is not available, then what do you do? Or when it stops working,
Yeah.
right?
Ooh.
They don't do it for you anymore. I don't know. You know what I mean? That's one thing. They don't want to participate in this with you anymore. They start asking questions like, what are we? What are we doing?
You can no longer have an orgasm from it.
That too. That show can happen. Right.
Yeah.
It's not because this is the thing. It becomes, I would say, like chasing a high. I mean, it's the same thing as a problem with the abuse of any type of substance or thing.
Mhm.
You're chasing that because maybe that one night stand, maybe that first one was like, wow,
Mhm.
oh my gosh, it blew my mind. I lived off of that dopamine for a couple of days. I remembered it and it was oof.
That's
And
the
then you
first
do it
time I've been happy since the breakup.
Mhm. Mhm. And he do it again. And it's kind of cringy. It's not really like it was the maybe if I do it again, and you in a lot of situations, it's never gonna be like that person.
Mm-mm.
It's just not. It's just not. That's not to say that you can't have healthy, beautiful sex and a loving relationship, all that good stuff, or with a consenting. This is not talking about that. We're talking about specifically when you're doing this in an unhealthy way
Yeah.
and you're doing it to pretty much chase that dopamine high,
Yeah.
it is never going to hit the same.
Yeah. And I do, with that being said, also want to say though, you can still do this while in a relationship too, though. But while
Mhm.
we're using a lot of examples of like one night stands or like just that person you probably don't need to be with, this can also happen when you are in a healthy relationship, but you decide, I I don't want to do the work. And now
Mhm.
again, kind of like we said earlier, I'm going to use my relationship as my tool to regulate myself. So
Mhm.
I feel better because you're here and you're so sweet and you're
Mhm.
caring. And that makes me feel good because someone cares about me. And so I don't have to deal with the fact I haven't bathed in 3 days because I'm so depressed. Fine. I'll bathe now because I'm going to see them and I want to smell good.
Mhm.
Okay,
Mhm.
but what happens? And then the problem with that is it's so risky to risk your mental health on the dependency of somebody else showing up.
Mhm.
Because, like Ashley said, what happens when it no longer works?
Or
But
you
also, what
completely
if, go ahead.
go ahead. No, no, no.
But
Sorry.
also, what happens when I decide I am recognizing you are so dependent on me and I don't want
Mhm.
that's not what I signed up for.
Mhm.
And they pull out.
When you've depleted that person, and I've seen people in pieces because that their partner is like, I can't do this anymore.
Mhm.
You are too needy. You are always like it just seems like every day is a bad day and I'm always here to pick up the pieces and I'm tired.
Yeah.
And that takes a lot for someone to recognize that even when they care about somebody that like I don't have the strength to do this anymore.
Yeah. And again, the thing is like again, when it stops working or when it's not available, when sex is the thing I am using to help myself regulate, to help myself get through, you're still gonna be set there alone to have to then eventually deal with your feelings. Except for now, instead of this little feeling, it's backed up.
Mhm.
It's
Mhm.
3 months, it's 3 years, it's 30 years of feelings that you
Mhm.
now have to sit and do because here's the thing, it does become a point if you are using this in an unhealthy way where it just stops working. And I am thinking about I was recently talking to a colleague that works with a lot of people with like sex addiction and how a lot of times people get help one when they're like in relationships and been cheating and they're like, I ain't gonna stay with you unless you get help. That's the thing. But one of the other like top, I think she said gave me like 5 reasons. She was like, also when it stops working. And we end up going on this like conversation of like how there's a lot of young men are struggling with like ED now.
Mhm.
Whereas that used to be something like, when you got in your 40s, you and your girlfriends would be like, "Yeah, girl, we're in licorice thongs and we trying acrobatics and I'm trying to figure something out. We got a set day and a set time I got to
Mhm.
do. I got to
Mhm.
howl at the full moon to make sure we can get this thing going." There used to be a thing like maybe in your 40s, 50s, 60s that you kind of heard about. And there's a growing thing with men in their 20s
Mhm.
struggling with it. And me and her were talking about this. And again, this is not my area, but what she was telling me, the experts in her area are saying, like, also, we're seeing it's not so much for sex, but porn.
Mhm.
And there
Mhm.
she was like, also, but using it as, again, an emotional regulation tool. And like they're seeing a large number of like young boys that started off at
Mhm.
like 9.
Mhm.
Because now I have my cell phone, it's in my hand. I ain't gotta wait till
Mhm.
everybody go to sleep. I
Mhm.
ain't gotta make sure AOL dial up ain't too loud. Like, I literally have it in my
Mhm.
hand, and she says and now it is not just like, "Okay, I need a thing to relieve my stress." It's like
Mhm.
they're having to go excuse themselves at work to jack off in the
Mm.
bathroom.
Mhm. Mhm.
They are having to go and, like, I gotta do in the morning before I go. I come home,
Mhm.
this is what I'm trying to do, and again, I'm so filled with all these images because again, I get a quick release, and again, masturbation is a healthy thing. We're not saying
Mhm.
don't masturbate, but
Mhm.
she was talking about how where she's seeing a large number of young men that are coming in with ED, like, the honey packets. She she was making a joke. Have you the honey packets at the gas station?
Oh, the little pills?
It's
I
a
don't know
honey
what they
packet. No, it's like honey, but like it yeah, it gets you up there.
are. Oh, okay. I was
But
like,
you can buy it, like, the gas station and stuff. But it's like,
mhm.
oh, girl, they had a whole thing about it, like, around Christmas where, like, it was a whole bunch of TikToks about it and all this stuff. But she's like, but, like, our 20-year-old boys should not be doing honey packets.
Mhm.
Like,
Mhm.
that's
Mhm.
and she was but the whole thing was, though, but because whether it be frustration and she was telling me one of
Mhm.
the things she was seeing is frustration from loneliness, frustration
Mhm.
again, the younger generation under us they still struggle with, like, interactions from strangers in person right away, right?
Mhm. Mhm.
So the dating, dating apps, all that stuff, but people are finding dating apps aren't that great. Not working out
Mhm.
for a lot of people, stuff like that. So
Mhm.
I'm getting frustrated. I'm getting lonely. I'm seeing my peers, they blah, blah, blah. And now I'm relieving self, but which can be very healthy, except for they're doing it in excess.
Mhm.
And I want to bring that up too, because I do kind of want to include masturbation again,
Mhm. I
not
think so, yeah.
in the sense of like, I need to knock myself out to sleep, or I just need a little something. I'm single. That's perfectly fine. But again, if every time I'm stressed, that's my go-to, hey,
Yeah.
let's kind of think about that.
If you're struggling to sleep because you have racing thoughts because of whatever problem it is you're avoiding, and instead of again, when you get up in the morning, you don't deal with it, you just masturbate and knock yourself out to sleep. I think that's the problem. I'm big on like associations.
Mhm,
So like our brain is constantly making associations for things. And so when it comes to sex and masturbation, I want it to be associated with happy things, with good things. I don't want it to be associated with stress or with anger or any of those other types of things. And to keep, and I think that's with anything. Like, if every time, like, again, I'm not above being like, whoo, today was rough. I'm gonna have a drink.
mhm,
Right. But if you always do that, if you only drink when you have a bad day, you're associating your bad days with alcohol.
mhm,
Or hell, I remember one point I had a job that just I just hated it. And
mhm,
I'd leave and I'd be like, I just want some hot Cheetos. And I was getting hot Cheetos like all the time. because I had made it my thing to do
Yeah.
when I had a bad day at work. But then every day turned into a bad day. And
Mhm.
I was always, and that's not healthy, right? Like this is
Yeah.
not a good thing for my body. If you ever eat any stuff with that red, it's not good for you. Don't do that.
First of
It's
all,
not an
I
everyday
enjoy my
thing.
Tahiti treat every
Mm-mm.
time I see it.
Okay.
Um,
But but like I like have learned to be more cognizant of how you make associations with things. So in turn, if you again are seeking sex or you're using masturbation only when you're in this particular mood,
yeah.
your brain is gonna tie those two things together
Yeah.
to where before you know it, even when you're in a perfectly fine, everything's safe, you're like, I don't even know how to eat. I'm not used to this
Yeah.
because it's not, I'm also big on like, well, not big on. I also strongly dislike like angry sex. I think that's very strange. Where people are like, let's get like mad at each other and get really riled up emotionally, and then do this thing, and it's like that's kind of I don't want you doing that.
Don't like it just because when I'm angry, I don't want you touching me. But I won't yuck someone's yam. I do think there's some things that I'm like, I don't really get it. But
Mm-mm,
if that does it
mm-mm,
for folks, I don't judge it. I'm just okay, hey, that's
mm-mm.
what rock y'all boat.
Not an
But
advocate of it.
but I
I don't know.
am if like again, it is again something just things where you are running. I'm doing this to
Mhm,
run and escape for something, then I have to kind of yuck that yam because
mhm.
the emotional turmoil that creates within self
We
eventually.
usually I'm sorry.
Mhm.
I did cut you off. I apologize. I was saying for me, but it's the angry sex thing is usually because it is avoiding. Like instead of like a proper apology, you just have sex.
Well,
Instead of figuring out why y'all got into that argument, you just have sex. Like
okay, I can see that.
people
I can see
that's
that
more
part.
so what I mean.
Okay.
Like when it's like you're not addressing what really got y'all there, you're just jumping into bed. And I was in a relationship not like that, but it was like we not fixing the problem and then we hop in bed and then we end up all snuggly afterwards and it's like everything's okay.
Mhm,
And when sex was taken off the table, where I was literally like, until we fix our problems, do not touch my body,
mhm.
we broke up. We there was nothing we weren't able to get there. You know what I'm
Yeah,
saying?
yeah.
So
Okay,
yeah.
I can see you with that. I can see with that. I guess more so I know I have, someone I'm cool with who does like angry sex, but also they talk all the time about everything, all the things, but also they're a person that like it's probably why we cool because also they're very passionate. So like they'll get into things and get real passionate and amped up and it can get to anger, but then for them, passionate anger can be real close. And I'm like, okay, I get it. And I think they probably have the healthiest relationship I know. So but I agree if it is avoidance of y'all's problems, because you're right. That is a thing of people who is just like, oh, I see this all the time in session of people who you're just like, y'all still arguing? Y'all still got that issue? Y'all been having that issue for the last 3 years.
Mhm,
But it's like, yeah, because I
mhm.
men, and I just want to say this real quick. We don't have to go into details, but like, head's not an apology. Head is not an apology.
No,
The amount I
literally.
feel like every woman in my life has had this experience with at least one guy that they dated where they're like, "I will be mad," and then he'll just pop his head down and he'll just be like, "I'm
What
still
is the question?
mad. Thank you."
What is I
Now you
yes,
gotta
that's
argue
how
with me with a messy face. How's that? Like, I don't
again. Baby boy. I just think about baby boy. You slapped her and then was like, I'll just give you ew, ew, ew. No, thank you. Ew. Men and women, because there's probably plenty of
Oh, yeah.
I could see women doing that. Like, let me just because there's also a lot of men who would be hoodwinked by that. Please don't. Do not be they're so
What
easy.
better for y'all?
And
Start requiring more than sex for birthday presents.
yes. Golly, then y'all be out here sad and depressed. Nobody celebrates me. Well, look what you've been accepting. You should have
Or
told
even
that lady, no, ma'am, with your cheap ass. But also, but I be like, talk to, because when men complain, I'm like, women don't do nothing for us. Should do. Talk to your homeboy who keep posting about how all he want is his belly full and his balls empty. That's why y'all can't get deeper connections and proper holiday gifts. Because y'all somebody is working against you and keeps telling women that's all y'all want. Talk to your homeboy.
Yes, but also y'all too have boundaries, and then when y'all out here dating and so forth, because I'm also tired of hearing some of my male friends just being like, "I want more, and I don't feel appreciated." Blah 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 blah. Cause you easy.
Cause you
Cause you easy.
no, that's very real.
All she did is send you a side eye emoji, and you came through. Like you say, you want more. It don't look like it, bro. It don't
Mhm,
look like she's
mhm.
not taking me seriously because you keep getting up the draws for emojis.
Ah,
Anyway, I feel
but
like I'm gonna be put in a group text. Only one of the guy friends actually really listens to like they listen. Only one of them like really listens, but I know he gonna send a clip or something. I'm gonna get a
so,
whole group text.
so how can we reclaim sex? So if you notice, hey, I've been using sex as a coping skill, but I really want to improve my relationship with sex and have healthy, fulfilling sex. um, I think part of it starts one with just like being aware. So if this listening to this conversation today has hopefully if you are like, feel like y'all kind of in my business right now, then, then great. We've helped you create some self-awareness, which is like step one. But then you have to really start looking into like why, asking yourself some questions. Am I actually using this to avoid something? Um, After I have sex, do I feel better? Do I feel like crap? Do I feel empty? Am I more confused than when I sent this text message and started this whole thing?
Mhm.
Um,
And
mm,
am I choosing this, or does this feel like something I have to do to be okay?
that's a big one, yeah. Mm-hmm.
And I
That's a
think
good.
once you reflect it, it's about finding that balance. Yes, y'all know we're gonna say therapy can be really helpful for you here.
Mhm.
I think a therapist can help you explore the why behind that, but also help you figure out your patterns because how think about it. How many times have you caught yourself doing something? You're just like, I don't know why I do that. I don't
Mhm.
being able to sit with somebody and look at the why sometimes can be all you need to create change. Not
Mhm.
always, but for some of us, literally just finding out the why. Or for some of us, it's literally just finding out it's a pattern. I know for me, once I figure out something is a negative pattern, that's a big thing for me
Mhm.
to be like, oh no, I already know. All I gotta do that. I had a relationship once where they said to me in an argument, I already know because all I gotta do is this, and then you gonna do that. And I was like, oh, that was the wake up call I need. Oh, I did not know that, but to know that you knew that
Mhm.
and now was using that against me, that can be enough of a change to go, hold on, there is something. This isn't just in because for some of us, we think it's happening by happenstance. You
Mhm.
know, yeah, I just be feeling the type of way and dick appears. Okay. But like also there's a pattern because also then we post our thirst traps. And then there's a pattern of like also we hit up that person we know always come through.
Mhm.
He's very good at that one particular thing. And also,
Mhm.
is it just happening by happenstance or are we having a particular pattern? I think being able to sit with someone and figure that out can guide it to healthier ways of coping. But
Mhm.
also, sometimes just knowing that that's what I do can also create
Mhm.
that change. Because a lot of times
Mhm.
we're doing this without fully recognizing that's what I'm doing here.
Mhm. And I would also say, like, you don't have to completely cut sex out. You can definitely work towards being like more intentional and more conscious about who, what, where, when, why you're engaging in this. Now, having said that, it also can be helpful to cut it out if you're in a situation where it's not like you're in a relationship or have like a meaningful connection or something. Like you're realizing, all these situationships, I mean, it's a little toxic, or or whatever the case may be. It may be beneficial to just go ahead and pause and stop and like figure some stuff out. I myself have had a period of celibacy. I mean, we've talked about it on here before. Like sometimes it's okay to just have a period of celibacy while you figure something out and say, And it don't have to be years. It may not take that long, but just saying, I'm gonna take a step back. I'm not gonna fall into this habit that I've developed. And I only want to engage in this act when it's intentional, when it's conscious, when it feels like it's a good, healthy thing, and not when I feel sad or when I feel
Yeah,
stressed or when I feel even just taking that type of inventory,
yeah,
checking in with yourself. How were you feeling when you initiated that conversation that you knew was going to lead to sex?
yeah. Again, like Ashley said, we've talked about this before. I have taken vows of celibacy more than once in my life. And for me, I know I've always used it as a way to recalibrate. When I'm like, I am feeling off and while I'm in the middle of this, I can't figure it out. And so I
Mhm.
need some time to myself. I need some time without the other outside noise and static to really recalibrate myself. And I think that can be a good way to use it. It can be really
Mhm.
hard and trickery to try to figure out how to do it in a healthy way while in the middle of some mess. Maybe
Mhm.
take a break, take a pause, and then untangle some of that before you jump back out in there.
Absolutely.
5?
Some alternative coping skills.
Yeah.
So I think we talk about coping skills enough. There's like a lot out there, but just for good measure, some better things to do. If you're assessing and you're like, I was doing that, okay, but what else? What else can I do? If you're doing this with sex because you're like, hey, the movement, get some heart rate up.
Mhm,
You can get out and do some other type of movement. Go for a walk, do a run, do some yoga. Um, and also I'm a big proponent of yoga, I will say, because I do feel like it always helps me get more in tune with my body.
mhm.
And just like a good check-in. You move a certain way, you like, well, I didn't know that was tight right there. Or whatever the case may be, but it helps you slow down and actually get in tune with your body. And I think if you've been using sex as a coping skill, you may be out of tune with your body.
Mhm.
Because some people are having sex totally disassociated.
Yep.
Also, that's
So
we
glad you
didn't
brought
touch
that
on
up.
that, but
Yeah.
that's a thing. So yeah, having something that allows you to actually get back in tune with your body, healthy movement.
Yeah. I know for me, again, I've talked about this. I'm big on grounding skills. Like I love mindfulness skills. And I think it's because for me, I am a person that when I am trying to escape, it is because I'm struggling to be in the present. I am now thinking about the past of like, oh, no, not really. I'm thinking about the future. Okay. And then this is what can happen next. And this is blah, blah, blah. And I am really struggling with being in the present because sometimes the present can feel unsafe. Sometimes being in your present moment, even going back to that disassociation from your body, sometimes being in your body feels unsafe. And it's like, let me do this thing real quickly to check and detach. And I know for me, that was a huge thing for me. It's still something I have to actively practice. My go-to thing for a long time was to emotionally detach. And so I really and if you're a person that's like that, like I detach or I isolate, mindfulness is probably going to be a game changer for you. Learning how to feel safe in the present is probably going to be the thing that is a big game changer for you. Because here's the thing, it's not even always about, well, I have to hurry up and deal with the emotions right now. Because sometimes you can't, sometimes it's such a big thing that it's going to take time to deal with the emotions. So I'm going to do it in pieces. Because also, I tell people this all the time, healing can sometimes be background music as well. And when I say that is because sometimes I have worked with people who are like, okay, let's do therapy 2 times a week. I'm going to do a group and then I'm going to do meditation and then I'm going to do yoga and I got all the books. I'm going to read the books and then and I'm like, hey, but
Mm-hmm.
we are also overwhelming. Sometimes it can be background noise where it's like, okay, I know I have this stuff and I don't have to overwhelm myself with all this. As someone who likes mindfulness stuff, I don't meditate every day.
Mm-hmm.
But I do know when I'm getting in situations like today, I had a fucking horrible day today. I had a very emotional day today. And one of the things I had to do is I was like literally driving home and I felt my body get very, very anxious. And because I was thinking about all the stuff that had happened today and some stuff that happened this weekend, and I was like getting very overwhelmed. And again, background noise. So I was like, okay, well, let me put on a something calming because Dipset is not helping the situation right now. So I'll put on calming music. And then I just start doing my deep breaths. And I was able to calm myself. I did not have to throw myself back into therapy. I didn't have to get all the books again. I didn't have to start
Mhm,
overwhelming myself with that. Because the thing about it with coping skills is it's to get you back to your regular life,
mhm,
to have you be able to get back to baseline. So yes, one of the other coping skills that you can use is like meditation practice, breath work, being anything that allows you to be able to be in the present, but have the present feel safe.
mhm. Another one is also healthy connections because, again, sometimes we engage in sex as a coping skill to get a false sense of connection. But connecting with people that you actually have like good, healthy relationships with, maybe you just need to talk and just be heard. Maybe you just need to, laugh with your friends. Maybe you need that. So connecting with good, good support system,
Mhm.
having a good support system and making connections with them can also be a very healthy coping skill.
And lastly, I would throw in creativity is an amazing coping skill. Even if you don't see yourself as someone who's particularly creative. Um, this can be painting, this can be drawing, this can be coloring. This
Mhm.
can be going on Canva and creating stuff, creating a t-shirt or a coffee mug for yourself. Sometimes creativity is, yes, journaling, but sometimes it's writing, girl, going back to writing that poetry that you used to like.
Mhm.
Um, letting your creative juices flow, I think can be a really great one that we don't look at past like go color because right now we have my coloring a big thing for millennials especially.
Yeah.
However, it can be something else. I have a friend who I love paint and sip. It
Mhm.
I love it so much. And I have a friend who like that's their thing. Like so they go like weekly and they love
Oh,
it so
wow.
much. Yeah, like
Mhm.
they go all the time. And like they'll just randomly invite me, like, hey, I'm gonna do a paint sip. You want to? Yeah. And horrible, absolutely horrible at it. We make jokes about it all the time. They're like, "Yeah, it's not good, but it's fun."
Mhm.
I'm getting to create art. It doesn't matter that it doesn't look good, but there's something about me being
Mhm.
able to focus and look, I made this.
Mhm. If you're like, I don't have money for creativity, they're like dollar store. I love a good dollar store craft. Okay,
Love.
there are whole pages and TikToks and everything else that are dedicated to you find a little dollar store craft and piecing something together for yourself. Also, one fun thing that I did last in December,
Mhm.
um, it was a splatter paint party
Oh,
where
nice.
you literally like you put on the coveralls and all that stuff and go in a room and just like splash paint
Yeah,
all over the place. And then we got to create a unique work of art.
that
It
is fun. That sounds good. And
was nice.
and kinda like you said, you can create everything you need to you can do a whole bunch with the dollar store. My baby got
Mhm.
a art desk for, like, I think Christmas last year or, like,
Mhm.
2023, and it's, like, a huge desk, and it's supposed and, like, it has um, holes and stuff for, like, different, like, paintbrushes, coloring aids, blah, blah, blah.
Mhm.
I fully stocked that whole thing from with Five Below and Dollar Tree.
Mhm.
Whole
Mhm.
thing, like, we got air dry clay,
Mhm.
Dollar Tree.
Mhm.
Watercolor pen, markers, Five
Mhm.
Below. You can do some stuff if you don't or like, I don't have the money, but also sometimes just get your pencil and draw on a
Mhm.
paper, on a sticky note.
Mhm.
When I went to take my test to get my license, my professional license, we're allowed to have paper, and I remember at one point in time getting just very frustrated because I they kept giving me a very particular set of questions that I was told was not gonna be a big part of the test. And I did. I took a second and I just doodled. I took my little
Mhm.
scrap paper and I doodled for a second
Mhm.
to just calm myself down, bring myself to the present instead of like being like, and that's why I should have went over this. Da, 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 da. Just to let myself calm down. Oh,
Mhm.
okay. Let's get back to it. What do we know about this?
With your good test taking skills.
I would
I
like to take no more tests ever again.
feel you.
Um, and we're not giving these tools because it's about replacing sex altogether. Sex beautiful. It can be so freaking beautiful and wonderful and fun and exciting, but it's about diversifying the ways that you care for yourself. Um,
Mhm.
sex can be a part of self-care. There's nothing wrong with it being a part of self-care. It should not be your only self-care.
Mhm. And it's also not sex with another person is not a replacement for self-love, self-awareness, or actual healing.
Fulfillment,
Mhm.
all the things. So, guys, we thank you for joining us in this conversation. We guys, if this episode resonated with you, share it with someone who might need to hear it. It's not shady, it's love. And as always, we ask you guys take good care of yourself because you are worth it. Now, you guys can follow us on Instagram at She Wolf Alchemy and on TikTok. Yeah, we are working on a TikTok. The new algorithm is not helping, but at She Wolf Alchemy Podcast. Make sure you leave us a review wherever you are listening. And we thank you guys for listening. We'll have a new episode for you next Sunday. Bye.
Bye.